Daisy is a rail car who lives on the island of Sodor. It was summertime this time of year, and all the engines love working in the summer. They love the nature, and they also love working hard during the summer. But Daisy does not like working at any time of the year. One day at Knepford, Daisy had to pick up double the amount of milk she normally has to normally take. She was not happy about it. I am going to have a word with my fitter about this. My swerves and fills are going to be so bad today. Will you cut it out, Daisy? Said Thomas. You barely do any work on the branch line anymore. I think it's time you get to work harder now. Daisy moaned and whined about to Thomas. You know what? I am a glorious handcar, Thomas. I don't need to explain anything to you, and she set off. At Wellsworth, she was whining and complaining there to the passengers, which the passengers didn't like. It scared all the passengers away from her. Bertie took them, and he immediately set off to get away from Daisy. This made Daisy even more upset. She yanked on the tankers and set off. At the dock, Salty was working when he heard something obnoxious. Me hearty, is that Daisy I hear, Cranky? I don't know, said Cranky. It sounds like Daisy, but what? Said Cranky. Just then Daisy came rocketing in. Well, that's just a question. Later on, at the sheds, all the engines came to rest. Daisy was still complaining. Daisy complained until it was time to go to sleep. I shouldn't be working extra jobs. I am a very fantastic rail car. Edward chimed in. Daisy, can you go to sleep and stop complaining? I think you've complained enough for one day. All the engines went to sleep, but Daisy stayed up longer and finally went to sleep. In the morning, Daisy was even more grumpy. She didn't want to go to work, but she reluctantly decided it was better to go to work than stay in the sheds all day. At Knepford Station, Thomas was having problems, so Harvey came to take him to the work for some maintenance. Thank you, Harvey, said Thomas. Don't worry about it, Thomas. Let's get you to the work so you can come back to work as soon as possible. Thank you, Harvey, said Thomas. A little while later, Daisy was forced to pick up Annie and Clarabelle, and she was not happy about it. Meanwhile, at Wellsworth, all the passengers were flocking to Annie and Clarabelle, or to Bertie. This made Daisy very upset. If I'm not going to get ridden in, why don't you just take the dang bus? This is so disrespectful to a rail car. Daisy, can you quit it? Said Bertie. It doesn't matter what they flock to. She didn't even listen. She just took off, leaving poor Annie and Clarabelle stranded, and leaving the passengers forced to take Bertie again, which Bertie didn't really mind. And Edward, a little while later, came to pick up Annie and Clarabelle. But meanwhile, at the docks, Salty was busy shunting some cargo cars. But meanwhile, Daisy comes running in and slams into cargo cars. And when the dust settles, Daisy starts freaking out. You miserable dockside diesel! You should have been waiting for me to pass. You are so disrespectful. Me hearty, I am not the one to blame here. You be the one racing down the rails like a lost cargo car. So don't blame me. Just then, Edward arrived with Annie and Clarabelle with Sir Topham Hatt on board. Daisy, said Sir Topham Hatt, you've been causing tons of confusion and delay these past few months. I'm not sure why, if it's because of summer, but you need to get your act together. You just caused a major accident. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I wasn't finished. Now we gotta send you to the works to be repaired. It's gonna cost a lot of money to get new cargo cars, and it's gonna take even more money to repair you. Now, when you come back, I want you to work with no complaint. Do you understand? Sir Topham Hatt also told her that Harvey would be the one to pick up in a few hours. It was nightfall when Daisy was taken to the works by Harvey. "What an eventful day," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Come on, Edward, let's get back to Knapford." "Yes, sir," said Edward, and they headed back to Knapford. A few days later, Thomas returned, and Edward caught him up on what happened. "Well, Edward," said Thomas, "I think it's time to show Daisy doing extra work isn't so bad after all." They both laughed, and Thomas returned to work on his branch line.